Anthony Nelson joins us with more insight on the coronation. He is director of the East Asia and Pacific practice at Albright Stonebridge Group. Thanks so much for coming in, Anthony.
Thank you.
We saw these lavish ceremonies in Bangkok. Tell us again how significant this coronation is in the succession.
Well, this is a tremendous transition for Thailand. King Bhumibol was one of the world's longest serving monarchs. Most Thais have never known another king. Now, while the king died a few years ago and Vajiralongkorn has been doing most of the duties of king so far, this is the end of that brief interregnum. It's the start of a new era of Rama X, as Vajiralongkorn now officially has become, and it really marks the transition to a new Thailand and the changes away from what most Thais have grown up with.
Anthony, what do we know about this new king? He seems to have a fairly guarded private life.
He does. He spends most of his time in Germany, and he has struggled for much of his life to fit into the expectations that were put upon him as crown prince. It's a restrictive kind of role, and he didn't always see eye to eye with his father about everything, but he's made clear as he's come into the role that he intends to be a pretty activist king. He intends to defend what he sees as the prerogatives of the monarchy. He intends to take a strong hand in decisions on issues of government. The new constitution that was sent to him a year or so ago for his approval, he immediately asked for changes and made sure some things were different from the way it was originally presented to him. So he isn't just going to be a symbolic monarch who waits his turn to participate in ceremonies. He intends to make his presence felt.
As you know, the former king is revered in the country. I was in Thailand. His image is everywhere. So are there any signs that point to how this new king might rule compared to his father?
Well, his father tried to keep himself above politics for the most part, stepping in only at moments of crisis. There were, of course, in Thailand, several moments of crisis over the years. And as the king aged, many people kind of lamented his inability to step in and take a more active role in solving some of the divides that were seen with the red shirts and the yellow shirts and some of the protests that really disrupted Bangkok for a number of years. With this king, we don't yet know how he will react when he's presented with a crisis. Thailand held elections in March. They still have not announced the final results of that election. We're expecting that a little bit after the coronation. The results were very, very close between a party tied to the current Prime Minister Prayut and a party tied to the exiled former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. And there is a potential for some significant upset among people when those final results come out. If their party doesn't do as well as they thought it should based on the early vote counts, if not all parties are represented fully and some of the newer parties don't get seated. So we may have an opportunity to see how the king will respond to a crisis sooner rather than later.
And you touched on my next question about those results of the last month's general election. Talk about this political dynamic in the country between the power of the monarchy as opposed to the power of the very powerful military.
Sure. The monarchy and the military have had a symbiotic relationship for many, many years. But it's not exactly a one-to-one relationship. They do have different interests that they follow. So the military has stepped in a number of times over the years when it's seen politics become extremely divisive, when the divide between urban and rural power brokers has become too much for the peace to be kept, basically. But the monarchy relies on the military, of course, to defend the country and be a central pillar of its power. But the monarchy has its own assets. The king keeps control of the Crown Property Bureau, and that has more than $30 billion worth of assets and companies and property. So he has his own resources that he can rely upon. In general, both parties want stability. They want the country to be able to go back to a period where there weren't constant disruptions. But in order to do that, they've got to find a way to satisfy some of these many voters and people that feel like they were not getting a share of Thailand's economic successes.
It'll be interesting how this role plays out. Thank you so much, Anthony Nelson with the Albright Stonebridge Group. Thanks for your perspective.
Thank you.